Good afternoon, everyone. This is Steven with Real Progressives, and behind me are two red and blue dinosaurs. Missing in the mix is our green dinosaur, the one that we are now supporting. So I use that as a prop, but let me tell you, one of the things that is generating this live stream is the fact that Bernie Sanders, when he ran, his entire economic policy was challenged repeatedly by people that are steeped in old 1971 and before monetarist thinking strapped to the gold standard, strapped to bad economic policy that no longer really matters to our country whatsoever. People that are in the Mises camp, the libertarians, or as I like to call them, the LOL-bertarians, people that are still stuck believing that quantity of money is a key factor in our debt or deficits. The fact of the matter is, quantity of money theory no longer matters. It never really did, and it definitely doesn't now. We are in a position right now where people are still believing there's a fractional reserve system. There's not. People are still believing that we are in debt to our gills, that we are trapped and we're strapped and we're going to bring this to our kids. We're not. Debt denominated in this currency of our U.S. government is not going to have to be borrowed from China. It's not going to have to be borrowed from Brazil. It's not going to have to be borrowed from Europe. We are the currency issuer. We are monetarily sovereign. We cannot go broke. So why does this matter? Because now Jill Stein is coming off trying to talk about how our student debt problem can be solved with a debt swap at the Fed. And she's absolutely correct. It can be. But it's more important to understand that as a currency issuer, we cannot go broke. We absolutely cannot go broke. We make choices every single day, political choices about poverty, political choices about the haves and the have-nots, political choices that grow the gap, the wealth gap, just that much more. And that's what it always comes down to, folks. The gap, and nothing but the gap. So help me God. So, as Dr. Jill is taking this a step further than Bernie even, okay, it's really, really important to understand sectoral balances. You may not want to hear this. It may bore the tears out of you, but that's okay. You got to hear it because you don't want to be ignorant about this subject. Sectoral balances talk about our federal deficit, deficit or surplus, talks about our private debt or surplus, and it talks about the rest of the world, aka our trade deficit. So federal deficits are good for us when we have an issue of unemployment or we have a trade deficit. Guess what? We have both of them right now. The bottom of our tub is letting out water. Our trade deficit is somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 billion a year. $500 billion that is leaving our economy every minute of every day. I mean, this is huge. So eventually what happens is that we go from government spending, which has been cut off greatly, going all the way back to the sequestration. And now what we do is we heap a lot of private debt on our citizens, on our businesses, etc. And as we heap that private debt has a limit. That private debt absolutely has a cap on it. And the closer we get to that cap, the more the economy starts drying up. As the economy starts hitting this dry spell, it's incumbent upon Congress to spend money to bring the economy back to life. And the old days, what we would do is we would just go pillage some other country for gold and other things. We just steal from them. We just kill them all and take what they had. Well, now we don't have to do that anymore. Now we have our own money supply. We can create the money. And please don't get into the Federal Reserve. They're bad people for a lot of reasons, but this isn't one of them. Don't make me school you on this. Let's just stick with the facts. So one of the things that's really important for us to know is that our Congress is the ones that spend money into existence. They're the ones that control fiscal policy. The Federal Reserve controls monetary policy. The difference is huge. Monetary policy is about lending and interbanking dollars. Fiscal policy is about what our government spends. Okay, so I've talked to you all about this countless times in the past. We've got a lot of new people that probably never heard this before or think I'm full of crap. That's okay. I'm ready for your questions. But here's the deal. When we spend money into existence, when we spend money, for example, Social Security, a prime one, there is no Social Security piggy bank that you've been depositing crumpled up old dollars in for the last 50 years. Every dollar spent by our government is a new dollar. That's right. There is no dearth of dollars. There is a dearth of political will to spend that money on the 99%. They have no problem spending that money on other countries. They have no problem spending that money on bombs. They have no problem spending that money on bailing out Wall Street. They just have a problem with spending that money on Main Street. And it's up to us to force the situation. But if you guys go around thinking like Republicans, stupid, ignorant, economically flawed people, then you guys will continue to get what you get. And we will continue to have none of our progressive change fixed. That's right. The more you repeat right-wing nonsense, the more we get nothing burgers, giant nothing burgers. You need to learn about monetary sovereignty. An entire school of economic thought has come about since 1971. Warren Mosler came up with what they call modern monetary theory, which drives folks that are not very smart crazy because the term theory is in there. Really what it is a description of economics from 1971 to present. Now, I have an MBA. That MBA, I may as well throw it away because everything I learned was basically gold bug thinking. I didn't learn about chartalism. I didn't learn about fiat currency in the right way. I didn't understand monetary sovereignty. So I repeated a lot of the worthless, stupid, just absolutely aberrant discussion points that many of you probably still talk about. Oh my God, the debt. Oh my God, the deficit. Just like Republicans. You guys are playing by their rules and it's ignorant. It's like a myth. It's like Saint Nick, okay? You guys need to get over that because it's killing our movement. Literally, quite literally killing our movement. So, but Warren Mosler discovered this stuff and he brought in a whole school of devotees like Stephanie Kelton, who was Bernie Sanders' chief economist for the Senate Budget Committee and also his chief economic advisor during his campaign. Remember, Bernie proposed $33 trillion of new spending over the next decade. His tax plan didn't come close to that. It was like this compared to the huge explosion of economic activity. Now, here's something else, too, that you won't think too hard about probably before now, but I'm going to tell it to you now. Americans are not thrilled with the idea of factory work. A lot of factory work just doesn't jive with the American psyche. However, building bridges, building out our nation's infrastructure, building out things like, I don't know, the power grid and underwater welding and things to get our buildings premier, back to snuff instead of being eyesores, right? That's the kind of work that Americans, blue-collar type people, would enjoy doing, and it pays good money, real good money. For a middle-class wage, it's good money. And that's the kind of stuff, if we stop repeating right-wing, LOL libertarian, Mises nonsense, gold bug praxeology, okay? If you stop repeating that nonsense and stop pretending like our federal government is like your household budget checkbook, if you start using your noodle, you'll realize that we can spend anything we freaking want right now as long as A, we still have a trade deficit. The trade deficit has to, we have to replenish money back into the economy with that trade deficit. Number two, we have unemployment. Folks, we've got a hell of a lot of unemployment. Just because you see this number low doesn't mean there's not thousands and thousands of people out there that are either underemployed or have completely checked out of the system, right? And then you take it to the next level. And this is the most important one. You got to look at the balances of accounts. Private debt is through the roof. People cannot afford to feed their families, and they're making over $100,000 a year. Remember when $100,000 got you somewhere? It's not that the value of the dollar has gone down, it's that they've got you boxed in. Sky-high student loan debt. has killed millions of people's ability to be viable in the economy. The same with the drug war, has taken people out of the economy. It's time that we spend that money back into the economy. Learn monetary sovereignty. Learn modern monetary theory. Learn sectoral balances. I will provide links, as I always do when I give these economic talks, but I don't know how many of you all actually read them. But I'm going to trust that the people that take the time to watch some guy standing on the side of a road in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, that if you're listening to me, you care enough about this subject that you will take the time to read the links, because I need you smart so that you can help me kick some right-wing tail. I need you to help me so I can kick some establishment Democrat tail, some dullard tail, people that need to be woken up economically, not just about the government corruption, but about the myths we tell to keep the 99% down. We're kept down to grow the wealth gap, and nobody has grown the wealth gap better than darn Obama. Trust me when I say this, the gap has grown exponentially. So, with that, look for me to post some links here shortly. Share this video around. I'm sure there's going to be some people that think they're bad, and they're going to come back and they're going to say, well, let me tell you about fractional reserve lending, man. Hey, the Federal Reserve back in 1913 with the creature of Jekyll Isle. Yeah, they're going to tell you all this stuff. I've read the book. I used to support Ron Paul. I know Austrian economics. Bring it. It's a bunch of bunk. It's a bunch of bunk, and it's meant to keep the people down. Don't believe the hype. I can school you on this, and the idea is not to be right. The idea is for us all to be right so we can make progress. I take no pride in being right, other than the fact that I want to get us to a point where we can make change happen and stop the talk about how are you going to pay for it. Are you going to tax them to death? Taxes don't fund spending at the federal level. Repeat after me. Taxes do not fund spending at the federal level. They solve for A, inflation, B, to purge excess reserves at the Federal Reserve, and C, Pigovian, meaning they're teaching you to do things differently. It's like a penalty tax to change behavior. But the one thing they don't do is they don't fund spending. There is no piggy bank with old wooden nickels and all the other nonsense, folks. It's all new spending. Learn it, live it, love it, tell a friend. Make sure that we grow this movement the right way and learn economics. This is Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives, hoping you learned something today. Have a good one.